back to BNC Live. New today, one of the fired Atlanta officers charged in the shooting death of Rayshard Brooks has been reinstated. The Atlanta Civil Service Board today reversing that termination of Officer Garrett Ralph. Now, he was fired last June, one day after that shooting death occurred of Brooks in that Wendy's parking lot. Brooks's death led to widespread unrest in the city. The Wendy's was even set ablaze. Now, Ralph faces 11 charges, including felony murder. Here's what the Brooks family attorney, it looks like we'll go back to that. And joining us to discuss this and more is our guest. We'll bring that guest up shortly. Oh, there he is. Thank you for joining us, sir. We also want to talk about that Derek Chauvin murder trial, and he and his attorney seeking an appeal in that. You know, that's the ex-Minneapolis police officer who was obviously convicted of killing George Floyd. Sentencing is scheduled for next month. Now, Chauvin's motion comes as the picture of that juror wearing that shirt, which I know that was the last thing we wanted to see, from that march on Washington. It surfaced online. It shows Juror 52 wearing a hat that says Black Lives Matter and also wearing that shirt that says "Get your knee off our necks." How do we move forward with this? And do you feel that Derek Chauvin was, that he had an unfair trial?
So let me talk about this in two ways. First of all, let's just talk about the legal, technical arguments in terms of, whether or not there was actually jury misconduct. So during voir dire, that's the process of picking a jury. The lawyers have two opportunities to remove jurors, right? You can remove them for cause, and you can also remove them pursuant to preemptory challenges. When you remove someone for cause, that's where you see some type of bias, or just any other reason why you don't think that they can do their service. And those challenges to the juror are unlimited. So you actually have unlimited challenges to remove a juror, and you have plenty of time to question and see whether or not they are, whether or not they can do their job. Then pursuant to preemptory challenges, you can move a juror for any reason, which is not discriminatory. Okay, and if you think that a juror is going to be discriminatory, or you think that the other lawyer is discriminating against them, you can launch what's called a Batson-Wheeler challenge, and you can ask for a race-neutral reason why that juror is being removed. So what I'm trying to say here is that the lawyer Nelson, he had a lot of opportunities to remove this juror with these devices that you can use. Plus, he had opportunities to question the jurors. The other thing I want to, if you just allow me, I'll say this, is that this is indicative of the double standard that always exists for Black folks, So, I would say this. He wants to use 20/20 hindsight and say, oh, yeah, well, this guy was wearing a shirt. But, let's talk about the history of jury selection when the coin is flipped and it's a black defendant. Never throughout history, it's always like the Black person doesn't get a jury of their peers. Okay. There are people selected who, you can look throughout history who've probably had ties to white supremacist organizations. So I believe that the real challenge is to Mr. Mitchell's Blackness. Okay. And it's indicative of the same thing that they're attempting to do with voting restrictions, just basically keep Black and brown people out of the voting system and the jury process.
So
that's
Attorney
what this
Cook,
amounts to.
Are you basically saying that if this juror was white, that we wouldn't be here?
We wouldn't be here. You and me would be talking about something else. Probably we would be talking about those voting restrictions.
Why do you think it would be so different? You don't think the judge would still think that juror was possibly tainted by attending that rally or protest or whatever he was doing?
I mean, again, we've seen numerous cases. The Innocence Project exists. That this is an organization, a nonprofit that uses DNA evidence now to release people that have been wrongly convicted throughout history. People that have been serving anywhere from a few years to multiple decades, and that is because you have biased witnesses, but you also have biased jurors, and a lot of times, I mean, we can talk about the Louisiana 5, I think it was. I mean, take any case. you can probably find a juror that went in with a specific bias, and I don't see any bias here. It's just the fact of the matter is that Mr. Mitchell is black. He supports black causes. He was at a Martin Luther King rally, and of course, given 2020, what black person hasn't worn a Black Lives Matter shirt?
So
our lives matter.
You're right, they do. Attorney Cook, so I have to ask you, if the former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was your client, would you not have asked for a new trial?
Well, I mean, that is something that you do, but you do have to have really good reasons to do that. That's often done, but you do have to meet it on the merits. And I've read the 4-page document, and most of it tracks a lot of what was said on Fox News by Tucker Carlson, that the jury rendered a verdict which expresses the sentiment, please don't hurt us. And that is a racist dog whistle. So you have to have actual real reasons. You can't just say, well, the country was against it, because that's not true either, because half the country didn't agree with the verdict. So it really depends on the facts of what happened. But I personally would look to real reasons why I thought there was juror misconduct or misconduct by the court.
Attorney James Cook, simply not enough time, but we look forward to welcoming you back, sir. Thank you for joining us on BNC Live.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.